I am Melissa Anderson, a 34-year-old ordinary mother living in the suburbs of St. Paul, Minnesota. At 7 in the morning, winter sunlight streams through the kitchen window, and the coffee maker on the counter fills the air with a pleasant aroma. This is how my day begins. While making French toast with the scent of cinnamon wafting through the air, I listen to my daughter Hannah's footsteps coming from upstairs. Now 8 years old, she's a third grader at Maplewood Elementary School. At this age, she always needs a little prodding to get ready in the morning. Hannah, breakfast is ready. Following the sound of footsteps rushing down the stairs, my daughter appears with a pink ribbon in her hair. The way she enters the kitchen while fixing her hair reminds me of a little lady. She has an artistic talent and a unique sense of style in combining clothes. Today, she's wearing a light blue dress with a white cardigan, and at her collar, she's pinned her favorite rainbow brooch. I'm going to play with dolls with Emily after school today. Over breakfast, Hannah excitedly talks about her plans for school. She loves playing with dolls and often spends time after school with her classmates. Thanks to her bright and honest personality, she has many friends and is well liked by her teachers. That's wonderful. But remember to finish your homework first, okay? Hannah gives a small nod to my words. My growing daughter has a healthy appetite, and the French toast disappears in no time. My husband Brian is away on another business trip this week. He works as an engineer at a medical equipment manufacturer, developing new products. Despite his busy schedule, this gentle and family-oriented man always makes time to spend weekends with us. When we met 6 years ago at a mutual friend's wedding, I was drawn to his sincere personality. After dating for a year, we married and enjoyed a happy newlywed life. And now, we've built this fulfilling family life. I work as a project manager at a web design company. Balancing work and childcare isn't easy, but I try to maintain a bright and positive attitude. We moved to this new residential area a year ago, choosing it primarily for the good school district. Our 2-story house, predominantly white, is the perfect space for our family. Through the large living room window, I can see our front yard gleaming in the morning sun. The flowers Brian planted over the weekend are still blooming vibrantly, despite Minnesota's cold weather. The living room with its fireplace is essential for our family gatherings during holidays. Especially in the cold season, we spend time cuddling on the sofa watching movies or enjoying board games together. Brian's sister Vanessa lives about 15 minutes away by car. She's a career-driven woman working as a financial advisor at an investment consulting firm. Though unmarried, she serves as vice president of the PTA and takes care of their parents. Her meticulous personality can sometimes seem strict, but she dotes on Hannah very much. "Mom, it's time to go to school." While lost in thought, the clock has struck 8. I pack Hannah's lunchbox with homemade sandwiches and fill her water bottle with her favorite apple juice. As I watch my daughter's retreating figure at the doorway, I feel another day beginning. With a coffee from Caribou Coffee in hand, I begin preparing for work. I have an important client meeting today. After quickly cleaning up breakfast while looking around the open kitchen, I sling my laptop bag over my shoulder. Getting into the car, I check my makeup in the rearview mirror. Hoping this peaceful life continues, I start the engine. My car heads toward I-35W in the cool morning air, signaling the start of another ordinary day. The end-of-year charity bazaar at Maplewood Elementary School is an annual event at this time of year. This year, on the last Saturday of November, the schoolyard was buzzing with parents busy with preparations since early morning. The sky was covered with gloomy gray clouds, and occasional snowflakes fell and melted. Still, everyone worked with determined expressions, setting up tents and arranging merchandise. They all understood how important this bazaar was for supporting families in need in the community. In one corner of the schoolyard, food trucks were already lined up, ready to serve warm drinks. The sweet scent of cinnamon and cocoa wafted through the cold air. I had been helping with the setup in the gymnasium since early morning as a PTA member. Over 30 sales booths were neatly arranged, filled with donated items from parents and community residents, used clothing, handmade crafts, toys, and more. All proceeds from this bazaar would go to support families in poverty in the community. "Melissa, does this arrangement look all right?" It was Vanessa who called out to me. As PTA vice president, she was one of the organizers of this bazaar. Her meticulous personality really proves valuable at times like these. "Yes, it's perfect. Thanks to you, this year's bazaar is going to be wonderful." As the 10 a.m. opening time approached, a long line formed at the school gates. People from the community waited eagerly for the opening, holding warm drinks in the cold weather. The tempting aroma of hot dogs and popcorn wafted from the food stalls. Hannah was helping nearby with her friend Emily. Both wore handmade staff badges on their chests, looking very proud. As soon as the doors opened, the gymnasium filled with excitement. People gathered at each booth, checking price tags and examining items. Having finished my initial tasks, I decided to look around the booths with Hannah. At the back of the gymnasium was the antique corner. Inside glass cases were carefully polished dishes and vintage accessories. The booth was being managed by a woman named Jane. Suddenly, Hannah stopped in her tracks. Her gaze was fixed on a doll marked with a special item tag in the glass case. It was a Western doll that looked as if it had stepped out of the Victorian era. The pale cream-colored dress was so exquisite it hardly seemed handmade, with even tiny shoes crafted in detail. The golden curls had a soft sheen, and the porcelain cheeks were tinted with a gentle rose color. The doll's deep blue eyes emanated a mysterious sparkle that captivated viewers. "Mom, this doll is so beautiful." Hannah's voice was filled with pure admiration. The antique collection tag showed a price of $298. While not cheap, it could be considered reasonable given its value. "Please, this could be my Christmas present." My daughter's eyes sparkled. Indeed, Christmas was less than a month away. I thought this doll might become a special memory. "She has such lovely eyes," Jane smiled kindly. "This is truly a treasured piece. I'm sure she'll become a wonderful friend for your daughter." Encouraged by those words, I decided to make the purchase. Jane carefully wrapped the doll while explaining its history and care instructions in detail. A golden ribbon was beautifully tied on top of the wrapping paper. "Thank you, Mom. I'll take good care of her." Hannah hugged the doll preciously. Seeing her smile made me feel the expensive purchase was worth it. "Melissa, are you leaving already?" I turned to find Vanessa standing there. Her gaze briefly fell on the package Hannah was holding. Yes, Hannah found a beautiful doll. She wants to take it home right away to display it in her room. "I see. I'm glad you found something nice." I thought I noticed a change in Vanessa's tone, but it must have been my imagination. She hurriedly headed off to another booth. On our way to the parking lot, we crossed the schoolyard where food stalls were bustling with activity. A long line had formed in front of the hot chocolate stand steaming with warm vapor. In the cold weather, children were happily chatting while warming their hands with hot drinks. "Mom, I want to make a room for Elizabeth when we get home." Hannah's eyes sparkled as she kept checking the doll in the package. The way she gently stroked the edge of the wrapping paper with her small fingers showed her gentle nature. "That's nice. Maybe when Dad gets back from his business trip, he can help make some small furniture for the doll. Brian is quite handy. He always enjoys doing crafts with Hannah on weekends. I'm sure he'll create a wonderful home for the doll." When we reached the parking lot, our car was lightly covered in frost. I started the engine, waiting for the heater to warm up the interior. In the passenger seat, Hannah held the doll preciously, as if welcoming a new family member. "Hey Mom, I think I'll name her Elizabeth. Because she looks like a princess, don't you think?" Hearing those words, I couldn't help but smile. Indeed, looking at her elegant appearance, she did seem like a princess who had stepped out of an old court. As I drove away, I glanced at the school building in the rearview mirror. The bustle of the bazaar grew distant. At that moment, I had no idea, or rather, I didn't want to imagine, that this doll would dramatically change our lives. From the day we brought the doll home from the charity bazaar, Hannah's life became colored like a beautiful story. It was the beginning of what seemed like days straight out of an Andersen fairy tale. That evening, Hannah held an unwrapping ceremony for the doll in her room. The way she carefully unwrapped the packaging, peeling away each layer of paper, showed the caution of handling a treasure. She carefully stored the golden ribbon in a box, labeling it "Keepsake." "Elizabeth, this is your room." Hannah created a small space beside her own bed. She laid out a lace handkerchief and rolled up a soft hand towel as a pillow. That night, until bedtime, she kept gently brushing the doll's hair. Elizabeth, as the doll was named, became a constant companion in every aspect of her daily life. They would wake up together in the morning, and the doll would sit in the chair next to her at breakfast. When going to school, Hannah would carefully carry her along. She received special permission from her teacher to play with the doll during breaks. She proudly showed off the doll's outfit changes to her friends' envious gazes. "Elizabeth is my best friend." Hannah's expression when she said this was filled with pure affection. She spent hours with the doll in her room after school. Dressing her in small dresses I had made, carefully brushing her hair, sometimes talking to Elizabeth about what happened at school, treating her just like a real friend. At night, she always made a small bed for the doll next to her own. The cute bed that Brian made over the weekend was covered with soft lace sheets that Hannah had chosen. "Good night, Elizabeth. Let's play together tomorrow too." Such peaceful days continued. However, everything would change after that night. It was past midnight. Outside was completely dark, with only the occasional sound of wind rattling the windows breaking the silence. I was just finishing checking some work documents and preparing for bed. A faint knocking sound came from my bedroom door. The sound was small and hesitant, but definitely there. "Mom, are you awake?" When I opened the door, Hannah stood there in her pajamas. She was clutching Elizabeth tightly in her arms, looking as if she might cry at any moment. The dim hallway light cast an eerie shadow on her worried face. "What's wrong? Did you have a bad dream?" "Mom, the doll is making a ticking sound. I'm scared." Hannah's voice was trembling. At first, I thought she might be hearing some mechanical sound. But indeed, a faint mechanical sound could be heard coming from inside the doll. "Can I see it for a moment?" When Hannah timidly handed me the doll, I noticed something odd about its weight. It was too heavy for an antique doll. And certainly, there was a rhythmic sound from inside. Tick, tick. In that moment, a chill ran down my spine. This was clearly not normal. My maternal instinct was sending out a strong warning. "Hannah, let's sleep together tonight." As I invited my daughter into my bed, I made a firm decision. This doll needed to be disposed of immediately. First thing tomorrow morning, I would take it directly to the waste disposal site. In the midnight bedroom, I continued stroking Hannah's small back until she fell asleep. Outside the window, cold wind shook the trees, casting unsettling shadows on the wall. I carefully placed the doll in the closet and made sure to lock the door. The ticking sound could still be faintly heard. This night would become the longest night of my life. I had to deal with this situation as early as possible in the morning. My daughter's safety was paramount. With this singular thought, I waited for dawn. In bed, Hannah slept closely pressed against me. Looking at her peaceful sleeping face, I strengthened my resolve. As a mother, I had to protect my child from this dangerous premonition, even if it meant parting with a beloved doll. The clock hands moved painfully slowly toward dawn. The eerie sound could still be heard from the closet. The regular ticking, like a timer, only increased my anxiety. The street lights suddenly went out, making the surroundings even darker. It was the darkest time just before dawn. Tree shadows flickered on the walls, and occasional gusts of wind rattled the windows. Hannah stirred slightly in my arms but fortunately seemed to be in a deep sleep. Checking my smartphone screen showed 4:15 a.m. The waste disposal site opens at 7 a.m., if I remember correctly. I still had to face this anxiety for over 2 hours. After some hesitation, I decided to call Brian. This situation felt too overwhelming to handle alone. "Melissa? What's wrong at this hour?" My husband's sleepy voice came through. "I'm sorry for waking you, but I needed to talk." I explained the situation in a low voice, about the strange sound coming from the doll, Hannah being frightened, and my sense of unease. "Should I come home right away?" Brian's worried voice gave me some comfort. "No, it's okay. I plan to take it to the disposal site first thing in the morning." "But, am I making the right decision?" "Melissa, I think you should trust your maternal instinct. Honestly, I'm also uncomfortable having something bought from a stranger in our house, especially a children's toy. But Hannah was so fond of it. Her safety comes first. We can always buy her a new doll." "I support your judgment." My husband's voice on the phone carried strong conviction. "I can be back by tomorrow afternoon. Until then, maybe consider staying at a friend's house." "No, it's okay. I'll dispose of it right away." After ending the call, I felt a bit calmer. My husband's words had reinforced my decision. The first light of dawn began to spread gradually from the eastern sky. I watched intently as night turned to day. Never in my life had I wished so desperately for daybreak. The clock showed 6:30 a.m. Hannah was still sleeping in my bed. How wonderful it would be if last night's events had just been a dream. While wishing this, the faint mechanical sound leaking from the closet reminded me that this fear was real. I carefully wrapped the doll in newspaper and placed it in a black garbage bag. with firm resolve to head to the waste disposal site as soon as possible. I could explain everything to Hannah later. Right now, my daughter's safety was the top priority. After disposing of the doll at the waste site, I was driving home. The morning news was playing on the radio. Just as the traffic information ended and the weather forecast was about to finish. Breaking news: an explosion has occurred at the Riverside Waste Disposal site in the St. Paul suburbs. We now go live to the scene for details. At that moment, my hands began to shake. Black smoke could be seen rising from the direction of the waste disposal site I had just left. The announcer continued. At approximately 7:15 a.m., workers at the waste disposal site reported suspicious explosive sounds. A small explosion occurred on site, causing damage to surrounding equipment. Fortunately, due to the early hour, few workers were present, and no injuries have been reported. I quickly pulled the car over to the shoulder. My hands wouldn't stop shaking. If I had been just a few dozen minutes later in bringing it to the disposal site. The mere thought sent chills down my spine. A TV station helicopter was broadcasting aerial footage of the disposal site with rising black smoke. Emergency vehicles, police cars and fire trucks, were arriving one after another at the scene in the live coverage. Police are analyzing surveillance camera footage collected from the scene. They are working to quickly identify suspicious objects. Hearing those words, I made my decision. I needed to report to the police immediately. When I returned home, there was an unfamiliar car parked in front of the entrance. Two men identifying themselves as police officers were conducting interviews with nearby residents. Mrs. Robertson from next door was speaking with one of the officers. It was at yesterday's school bazaar. Everyone was talking about this unusual doll that was on display. The moment they heard those words, the officers' expressions changed. Several hours later, Maplewood Elementary School was filled with investigators. The footage from security cameras installed in the schoolyard was being examined, and bazaar sales records were being checked one by one. Everyone involved in running the bazaar had to be interviewed. Jane, who had managed the antique corner, testified tearfully. That doll arrived as an anonymous donation a week ago. Following regulations, it was verified by the PTA officers. The investigation progressed at a surprising pace. Among the fragments recovered from the explosion site, pieces of the doll's porcelain were discovered. Furthermore, remains of a timer-triggered detonator were found. The scene investigation revealed that this was not an accident but a planned crime. The media competed to report on the incident, sending shockwaves through the local community. The investigation headquarters announcement that the perpetrator likely conspired with multiple accomplices filled my heart with further anxiety. Why did the school bazaar have to be targeted? And who was behind this incident? In the evening, Brian returned early from his business trip. After leaving Hannah with his parents, we went to be interviewed by the police. The investigators asked detailed questions about the strange feeling I had and the sounds I heard late at night. Mrs. Anderson, your courageous decision may have prevented a major disaster. The detective inspector's words filled me with mixed emotions. While the worst might have been avoided, why did such a terrifying thing have to happen? That night, the news was dominated by coverage of the incident. The security camera footage of the doll was broadcast over and over. Each time I saw it, the terror of that midnight came rushing back. Mom, what happened to Elizabeth? Hannah's innocent question upon returning from her grandparents' house left me speechless. To think we had to take away her precious memories in such a way. Outside the window, several media vehicles were parked. This once peaceful suburban town had been deeply shaken by a single doll. About a week after the incident, a shocking truth came to light. The reality was a development that no one could have predicted. The person arrested was none other than my sister-in-law Vanessa. She had carried out the crime by exploiting her position as PTA vice president. During the interrogation process, her meticulous plan was revealed. For 6 months prior, her device history showed she had been researching bomb-making methods on anonymous internet forums. She had carefully purchased electronic components, timers, and explosive materials from separate stores bit by bit, taking precautions not to raise suspicion. The suspect used multiple accounts to gather technical information. I was left speechless at the investigator's explanation. The sister-in-law I had always thought of as meticulous and serious had planned such a thing. Even more shocking was her method at the bazaar. Vanessa had switched the actual donated item with a fake doll containing her homemade explosive. Using her position as PTA vice president, she had tampered with it during the donation verification process. The antique corner was in a less visible location. She apparently calculated that there would be limited buyers due to the higher price setting. The investigation report continued to reveal surprising facts. 1 month before the incident, she had failed in managing her parents' inheritance, resulting in a loss of $300,000. Her misjudgment as an investment advisor had led to an irreversible situation. She was also behind in payments for her parents' nursing home fees. We believe the crime was committed after being driven into a financial corner. In the interrogation room, Vanessa had completely lost her former dignity. It was all my fault. Her confession revealed struggles unknown to the family. Her parents' nursing home fees were $8,000 per month. On top of that pressure came the investment failure. Backed into a corner, she had reached for the worst possible option: insurance fraud. I thought if an accident happened, everything would be resolved with the insurance. But I never expected Melissa to. According to her plan, the doll was supposed to explode in the buyer's home. Then it would have been handled as a mere accident, allowing her to collect a large insurance payout. However, my intuitive judgment had thwarted that plan. The investigation process also revealed more complex family relationships. Vanessa, who had single-handedly taken on the care of their parents, had harbored resentment toward her other siblings. No one helped her. No one understood her. Such feelings of isolation had driven her to this point. While the suspect denies the existence of other accomplices, the investigation is ongoing. The investigation headquarters announcement once again shocked the local community. A planned crime by someone in a trusted position as PTA vice president. This fact greatly shook the everyday safety that everyone had taken for granted. That night, Brian and I talked. Why didn't we notice? We should have recognized her suffering earlier. My husband's words carried deep regret. Indeed, Vanessa had seemed a bit different lately. But to think it would turn out like this. The next day, the school held an emergency parent meeting. The gymnasium was filled with concerned parents engaging in heated discussions about future preventive measures. The entire approach to charity activities would be reviewed to ensure such an incident never happened again. That night, Hannah came to my bed. "Mom, was Aunt Vanessa a bad person?" To that innocent question, I carefully chose my words to answer. Sometimes, even adults make wrong choices. but that doesn't necessarily mean they're bad people. While stroking my daughter's small head, I thought about it. People sometimes make irreversible choices when backed into a corner. But there's always some circumstance behind it. Perhaps understanding that is the first step we can take. Outside the window, camera lights from the media were still flashing. This incident had given our family much to think about. In February, when winter's cold was at its harshest, 3 months after the incident, the trial began at Ramsey County Court. Opening the heavy wooden doors to enter the courtroom, we were enveloped in a tense atmosphere. The spectator seats were filled with local residents and reporters, with what appeared to be plainclothes officers scattered throughout. A solemn silence hung in the courtroom, and while waiting for the judge's entrance, I held Brian's hand tightly. The prosecution's opening statement emphasized the brutality and premeditation of the crime. Security camera footage presented as evidence showed Vanessa repeatedly entering and exiting the antique corner on the day of the bazaar. The defendant abused her position as PTA vice president and exploited a charitable event to carry out this vile crime. The prosecutor's voice echoed through the courtroom. Expert testimony detailed the process of making the explosive device hidden in the doll. The device, assembled from commercially available materials, was set to activate after midnight. I involuntarily shuddered. If my daughter hadn't come to my room that night, frightened. The explosive power was sufficient to destroy objects within a 10-meter radius. The explosive ordnance disposal expert's testimony caused a stir in the gallery. The defense emphasized Vanessa's potential for rehabilitation. They stressed the mental pressure from managing her parents' care and inheritance failure, and the financial constraints that led to the crime. However, their defense rang hollow. The verdict was delivered on a cold morning in early March. The judge's solemn voice resonated through the courtroom. I hereby sentence the defendant, Vanessa Anderson, to 12 years imprisonment for attempted murder, violation of explosives control regulations, and fraud. Additionally, I order payment of $500,000 in damages to the victims and permanently ban entry to school facilities after release. After the verdict, our family faced a major decision. Hannah began to be called the bomb girl at school and needed psychological counseling. Moreover, our anxiety about continuing to live in this area grew. There's a nice property in the Minneapolis suburbs. At Brian's suggestion, we decided to relocate. The new house was in a quiet residential area. Hannah's new school also warmly welcomed her. "Mom, I think I can make new friends here." On moving day, Hannah said this with a smile. In her expression, I could sense the gradual healing of her emotional wounds. Meanwhile, this incident had a significant impact on the local community. Maplewood Elementary School completely revised its safety management system for all school events. Professional pre-inspection of donated items became mandatory, and additional security cameras were installed. The charity system itself underwent major changes. Anonymous donations were banned in principle, and history checks became required for all items. Furthermore, security awareness increased throughout the community, and neighborhood watch activities were strengthened. The most significant change was the enhancement of family support systems. A support center for families caring for elderly relatives was established, and initiatives began to share the economic and emotional burden across society. All to prevent another tragedy like Vanessa's. After 6 months in our new home, our family bonds seem stronger than before. We make sure to spend time together every weekend, sharing our feelings with each other. Maybe it taught us the importance of family all over again. When I said this to Brian one night, he quietly nodded. Yes, but from now on, let's create only good memories. Outside the window, spring winds rustled new buds. Our new life was just beginning to sprout as well. The scars from the incident won't easily fade. But this experience taught our family the importance of caring for one another. And above all, the importance of having the courage to trust a mother's instinct. I still believe that to this day.